Alright everyone, what's up? Game number 2 right now between BratOk and WhiteRa. This time we are in Lost Temple. Looking forward to this matchup. Of course, WhiteRa being our red Protoss player and BratOk being the yellow Terran. So Terran versus Protoss here on Lost Temple. Looking forward again. This is a best of 3. Now WhiteRa did manage. If you don't know, then you should go watch game number 1 before you listen to me talk about what I'm about to talk about. WhiteRa, pause the game and leave. Alright, now that people who haven't seen Game 1 have left, I will let you know that WhiteRa did manage to win the last game, pushing out with that 3-gate into expansion, and then with that 3-gate power, followed up with a couple Immortals out of his Robo, managing to push out and do a lot of damage, and BratOk just did not have enough to deal with that. And no, I'm not going to do that ridiculousness at the beginning of every game. I fully expect people, what the hell is this going on over here? Please exit out of that. I fully expect people to watch game number 1 before they watch game number 2 in the series. I will always post these things in order. So if you click on something that says game 2 and you're going to cry about spoilers, well, how about you just watch game 1 first and pause game 2? Again, game 1 in whatever series is always going to be available on my channel before game 2. And if you have a hard time finding these games, well, then you just must be a little bit slow, because game, again, it's always just going to be the video uploaded right before the one in the series. Anyways, WhiteRa dropping down that gateway right now at 13 supply, moving out with that scout. Going to be catching exactly where BratOk is at this point. Going to be seeing some probe harassment here. Hopefully he starts attacking that SCV, trying to be a huge nuisance. Going to force BratOk to pull a guy off the line, and look at that in anticipation. BratOk, no, that was actually the scout, so never mind. But now he knows that the harassment is coming, so going to be pulling down a separate scout and trying to harass this probe as well. Actually whittling away the entirety of the shields. A lot of time you do see Protoss players manage to pull away that probe scout before the shields drop and before he actually takes any structural damage. But no, it didn't happen this time. BratOk opening with that very standard play. Going to be interested to see if he decides to go for that same kind of opening. 1 Rax into fast expand. I don't expect it once he scouts where WhiteRa is. These close positions, fast expanding, incredibly dangerous here in Lost Temple. If you try to do something like that, chances are you're going to get punched in the face with some early game pressure, and that of course is the last thing that we want. BratOk dropping down again this depot at the front of his base. Now this of course helps basically control the flow of traffic into your base. And again, if you're expecting to tech up, or if you're thinking that you might deal with early pressure, it then provides you with the ability to put down a nice little bunker here, and again, control the flow of traffic, forcing units to move away from the mineral line, providing extra fire for anything, of course, in the bunker and behind the bunker. So obviously a good idea. Might as well give yourself that opportunity. Really never want to go for something right here, though, because it's so easy to be sniped. If you get pushed early and they catch any sort of vision of the high ground, they're just going to snipe down any depot and supply block you. And that, of course, is the last thing you want. Over here for WhiteRa, we are seeing a Chrono Boost go down on that Warp Gate research. Big scout going down here for, no, it's not a big scout, it's a normal size scout, but we have a scout going down here for BratOk. Going to be seeing nothing but the standard, really. Obviously, this is a telling sign, seeing that Chrono Boost go down on that Warp Gate research as opposed to going down on the Nexus. This lets him know that WhiteRa isn't planning kind of a macro econ heavy game. Otherwise, he probably would be Chrono Boosting those probes there. Also going to be keeping his SCV outside, getting ready for that secondary scout, but here comes the Stalker. Needs to be careful. Stalker not seeing that SCV and actually bypassing it. Here comes a Reaper right now. He needs to be careful. Doesn't want to lose it again to that Stalker. That is 2 games in a row that BratOk lost his first Reaper to that first Stalker of WhiteRa. That's got to be a little bit discouraging. And here we go. BratOk going to be coming out with that 3 racks, and there is that expansion. So doing, in fact, the exact same thing. Again, incredibly risky, really, here, and especially risky when we have a 3-gate. I thought that was going to be a 4-gate, but it's a 3-gate Robo, so I guess that's not as risky, because the Robo is going to take a little bit of time to get ramped up there. Obviously, not being able to warp in units, it does take that extra bit of time. I tell you, man, if WhiteRa had 4-gated right now, he probably could have steamrolled over BratOk. At least would have been much easier to push in really early on. But anyways, we will see what goes on. Starting things off with that stim pack. Going to be following it up with, I am not quite sure. We have a reactor coming down. Wonder if he's going to get a tech lab here. A little bit surprised, really, that he did go last game so marine heavy. Not that it's a terrible idea, but he's going to be doing it again, actually. But going, obviously going Marauder heavy, very, very effective against Protoss, especially early game. Now, again, we do have this Robo coming out, so Immortals would be that proper response, and I suppose that he is not expecting WhiteRa to 4-gate, and as such is comfortable going Marine heavy, because that would be a better situation, especially with the Immortals on the board. Marines very effective against that. Stark are going to be pushing forward, trying to do some scouting. He needs to be careful not to get within range of these guys. In fact, that is why WhiteRa is moving along that path. So there is something else. If you're doing some early game scouting with units, try to make sure you stay away from the ledge. You do not want to get shot with that stuff. And in fact, he was scouting for the expansion. Was a little bit late on that, though, because, as you can see, BratOk not pulling that over quite as of yet. Going to work on this saturation a little bit first on this line and then lift it off. There's a lift off right now. Going to be pulling on back, and here comes the expansion. It's a really pivotal moment. Depending on how early and how aggressive WhiteRa is, this could be a very dangerous situation for our friend BratOk, but we'll see what happens. Again, we do have a 3-gate robo right now for WhiteRa. WhiteRa, nice early game units. He does have this one sentry here, allowing him to force field in case we see any early pressure. Lots on the board right now for BratOk, and BratOk moving down with the push, moving down with some SCVs to saturate that expansion. That wasn't as exciting as I initially thought it may have been. Thought he was going for some sort of an all-in, but obviously much more logical. Wants to saturate that expansion, try to even up that distribution of workers between the two. That is pretty even, a little bit lighter than the expansion, but either way, I will not bother him about that. Coming down with a couple of depots right now. No transition as of yet, just going to be working on this Marine heavy, a little bit of Marauder mix of units there. Dropped something over there, wasn't quite sure what that was, and a Colossus. Holy hell, how did I miss that? We had a Robo Bay go down. I suppose I should have realized, since there was no expansion from WhiteRa, we had that Robo Bay go down, and here comes the Thermal Lance, and Colossus is on the way. So this is quite exciting. Really early Colossus, and man, not a good situation for BratOk. BratOk sitting Marine heavy Colossus. That could be the death of him. Now putting down these bunkers is going to make it quite easy for him to, not quite easy, but a lot easier for him to defend the expansion. And let's take a look if he has any idea of that. No, he does not. So he does not know right now that Robox Bay is on the board. Here comes that expansion right now for WhiteRa. First Colossus is out, but chilling right over here in the corner. Might very likely just be waiting until he gets 2 Colossus on the board before he decides to push out. We do have that factory making its way on in. I'm probably going to be seeing that starport dropped right here. And in fact, there it is. And that, of course, is going to allow him to get that double medevac or, man, look at those bunkers. Or it's going to allow him to get that double Viking, which, of course, is going to be very effective against these early game Colossus. So very interesting right now. Both players kind of doing what they need to against the other to have that tech advantage. Again, knowing that BratOk was going Marine heavy, we did see that Colossus come out, and obviously knowing that Colossus are likely seeing that starport with that reactor. But again, obviously, either way, starport reactor going to be a good and wise decision because the double medevac going to be effective up until the point that Colossus are out, and then of course switching into the double Viking. Moving up with this factory, going to be actually scouting, I am quite certain. Yes, he is pulling that look at that little patrol route there, so he's going to be scouting the expansion, going to want to check unit composition and all of that jazz. Quite content here being on these 2 bases, and those bunkers are absolutely killing me. This is fantastic. 2 rows of bunkers. You do not see this very often at all. Let's take a look at that army tab right now. Pretty even for both players. We have 86 to 91, so relatively even between the two. As far as actual resource investment, we can see kind of even as well. But anyways, over here, Colossus right now on the board. We have a ton coming out right now. 1 Viking, and actually this is not looking too good for WhiteRa. Once those Vikings get into play, we do have that 1 Viking. We'd like to see some more, and here we go. Now fully aware that Colossus are on the board. He's going to start pumping out those Vikings any moment now. I can feel it. I know it's coming. There we go. 2 Vikings on the way right now. So WhiteRa gonna need to be careful with those Colossus. Does not want to get sniped down. He does have that Thermal Lance upgrade right now though, and again doing work there on those bunkers. Obviously, as you can see, doing absolutely nothing. Nice repair job going down. Gonna try to push back those SCVs though by moving forward with those Zealots. But look at him just going to town there on that bunker. And meanwhile, over here, what do we got going on? BratOk going to be dropping in the back of WhiteRa's base. We also have this factory scout going down. This is actually going to cause a lot of damage. I hope WhiteRa is paying enough attention. BratOk, unfortunately, engaging those Colossus there with those Marines and Marauders. Not what he wants to do. Vikings moving forward. Going to start sniping down those Colossus very quickly. A continuous harassment here going down. BratOk doing tons of damage. In fact, I think he managed to kill off a lot of those probes. Big battle going on 2 fronts right now. SCV is pulling down, trying to repair that bunker, keeping up as long as possible. Vikings continuing to go to work on this Colossus, and it looks like BratOk's actually going to be okay. Continuous reinforcements making their way down there. That bunker is still up. Colossus trying to do what they can. The drop is continuing over here, trying to warp in some units, but WhiteRa has taken absolutely devastating losses here to this drop. Excellent response there by BratOk. Colossus still in the front base. Huge repairs continuing to go down on that bunker. Pulling forward, snipe going down on the Colossus. Excellent response there by BratOk. Drop continuing to do damage. These Marauders absolutely devastating here to this mineral line. They are all at full health still, and this is unbelievable. Looks like BratOk managed to fend off that gigantic push from WhiteRa. Those 3 Colossus, bunch of stalkers there, and then responding at the exact same time by dropping in the back of WhiteRa's base, and WhiteRa does GG. So great, exciting game between these two players. Again, that huge push came out with those 3 Colossus, bunch of Stalkers, Zealots, and a couple of Sentries from WhiteRa. But at the exact same time, we did see BratOk respond by dropping in the back of WhiteRa's expansion, killing nearly all of the probes over here, lifting up and then going into the main, and that was just absolutely devastating amounts of damage. WhiteRa, unfortunately, not responding quickly enough at his main and the natural, didn't pull away not the drones, but the probes like he needed to. He didn't pull those probes away, and unfortunately, he lost all of his resource gatherers, and that was, of course, a big problem. And we can see over here in BratOk's base, pretty much didn't lose anything, pulled a few guys, lost a few SCVs to this engagement, but most of them were still mining that entire time. So great response, great action there. And actually, take a look at this APM right now. 194 for BratOk as opposed to 121 from WhiteRa. So obviously, BratOk going absolutely nuts there, doing that drop and trying to defend his base at the exact same time. So great game. This was game number 2 in the 3-game series. We will be moving on to game number 3 right after this. Taking out the Sentry. Oh, yeah. 1 kill before dying to the Stalker again. Get away. Get away. Unbelievable. Look at that. He gets the trophy. I don't know what it is, but he's going to get it. I will send him a trophy of sorts. If he could live through the entire game as well, that'd be really awesome. But look at that Reaper getting away with 4 HP, managing to kill that Sentry as well. He has paid for himself right now, most certainly. Moving around, some excellent maneuvering. Going to be trying to grab that probe. Quite possible. All right, enough of paying attention to that. Let's see what's going on here in the base. We do have that 3 racks moving on out from BratOk.